This weekend, my family and I are staying at Gull Lake, Aspen Park, Lakeview Campground. And so I want to take you on a little tour of what this campground has to offer. There are lots of sites, over 200 sites at this campground, some that have water, power, some that just have power, and some that are not serviced at all. This weekend, we're staying in an unserviced site, which we don't normally do, so we had to bring our generator along. Anyways, let's go take a look at this campground and see what it has to offer and give you a little insight on what the Gull Lake campgrounds have just for you. This is our second time camping at this campground over the last few years. Now, when you're looking for Lakeview Campground, you'll need to type in Aspen Beach Lakeview Campground, because there is a Lakeview Campground in Gunn, Alberta, in Slave Lake, Alberta, in Elkwater, Alberta. And so in order to find the one on Gull Lake, you're going to need to type in Aspen Beach Lakeview Campground. Just an FYI. To book this campground, you're going to need to go to reserve.albertaparks.ca and search Aspen Beach Provincial Park, Lakeview. On your left-hand side is the main office. This is where you're going to check in for your reservation, and on the right-hand side is where they store firewood that you can purchase on site. It's going to take a little bit of a drive to get to the first A loop, so I'm just going to speed up the video so we can get there quickly. When you first check in, the parks person is going to ask whether you'd like to use their dumping service. It's $5, which is a great price, and you can conveniently do it once you're done your camping trip, which I like to travel with an empty tank. In Loop A, there are 109 sites. Sites 1 to 42 have power, water, and dump services to those pull-through sites. So this is a closer look at the first loop, starting at site number 1 and going down and around to site 14. So as you can see, as you look closely there, there's lots of space between each campsites. There's trees, and each one of these sites you can pull your unit through, which as our units get bigger and bigger, this is a much needed offering that a campground can give its customers. This site right here is site number 7, and as we turn around the corner, you're going to see where the water pump is located. It's a wonderful thing to be able to have access to water, even though each of these units are plugged in to the direct water line. And on my right-hand side, we're starting with site number 8, and we'll go all the way down until site 14. So just take a chance to look at these campsites, get an idea of how big each one is, and see what you might like as your next camping spot at Lakeview Campground. One of the frequently asked questions is, do you get good cell reception here? And we were in Loop C and had great cell reception the entire time, which when you're having to work while you're still camping is a wonderful blessing to have. This is site number 14 to give you an idea of what it looks like without a unit there. As we come out of this loop, on the left-hand side, you're going to see one of the public washrooms. These had running water, of course, and flush toilets, which for me is always a nice bonus that the provincial parks can provide. And now we're going to turn into the second loop. This is starting with sites 29 to 35. Now, as you notice these sites, there's no second row to them. They've got trees on the front and back. There is open space between each units, and so there's not as much tree coverage as you have in other provincial parks. And yet these sites do have power, water, and sewage. And the rate per night is $59 for having all these services. And at the end of this loop, you'll also see that it has a public water tap for everyone to use as well right here. We're going to speed the video up a little bit and get to the next loop. On the right-hand side, we're going to have sites 43 to 49. On the left-hand side, you're going to see sites 50 to 63. And then a little further up, You also see another public washroom that's available for guests to use. And now we're going to turn back on the right-hand side and see sites 64 to 77. All these sites have power, and that is what the service they offer. Also, a little bit further down, you're also going to see sites 94 to 109. We're just driving by these ones quickly because they do all look the same. Depending on the size of trees between each site, there's a little bit of difference. But these are what the options are. There's a loop down at the bottom of site A, and the paths off of here take you on some wonderful bike paths. This is one of the things I love about this campground are the different bike trails. And I'm going to show you what they look like. We'll take a little bike ride down one of them. This is a path that takes you down directly to the beachfront. There's a little bit of a walk to get there, but that is the path that will take you to the beach access, as per the sign. We're going to come back up loop A, and we're going to go into one of the other loops on the right hand side now so that you can check those out next. So the loop that we're going to drive through now is site 50 all the way to site 63. There is a great view of the public washrooms, both male and female, and it shows you just what it looks. It is September long weekend, and so unfortunately that means in Alberta that some of the leaves have began to turn and it looks a little bit more like fall. But this just gives you another idea of what the sites look like that have just electricity also. But what's I like about this campground is that there's lots of space for those that actually want to do tenting. This is a campground site that I actually see more tents in it than I do in other campgrounds. And I think it's because there is a lot of grassy surface that people can put their tents on. There's gravel for you to park your cars. Side note, here's a path, one of the wonderful bike paths that are available at Lakeview Campground. But there's lots of grassy areas in this campground, and you can see one of the public playgrounds that's tucked back behind there, which is great for the kids to have a little bit of a separate area to play and not be playing on the roadways like you see in many other campgrounds. But what's great is there's a lot more grass for those that are tenting, like I was saying before. Sorry, going back to that topic. And yet there's gravel also for those travel trailers. So it's a good mixture of both types of campings that you find in this campground. And here we are coming to the last few sites on the loop. You're going to see this is 61, 62, and this last site here is 63. I'm going to speed up the camera again a little bit, and we're going to drive past sites 36 to 42 and also 15 to 28. These sites again have power, water, and sewer for the cost of $59 per night. As we wrap this up, we're going to come back to the beginning of loop A, turn right, speed up the camera again, and take us to loop B. We're now going to enter loop B. This has sites 110 to 228. It also has parking and access and beach access there. First, we're going to head into the first loop. This is site 110 going to site 116. And surprisingly enough, some of these loops were already empty. Yes, we were doing the tour on Sunday of the long weekend, but I have to admit I was surprised that they were not occupied. That's the one disadvantage with some of the parks, is that once a site is booked, even if no one shows up, it's going to stay empty. Because I probably would have moved over just to be able to enjoy that power, water, and sewage that is offered in this loop. And other loops in loop B, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. That is site 114 on the left-hand side to give you a reference point as to where we are in this loop. We're going to speed up the camera again and drive past sites 29 to 35, which also have all three services. Next, you're going to see sites 43 to 49, 64 to 77, 94 to 109, and those 3 loops have power to those sites, which is $43 a night. Here we are at the end of the B loop, driving down towards Gull Lake, and we're going to enter the parking area, which is a huge space. The public can access the beach at Lakeview Campground during daylight hours. The beach is a popular spot for swimming, sunbathing, and fishing. Note that the campground, though, is private property and that visitors need to follow the rules and regulations to ensure that everybody has a safe and enjoyable experience for the visitors that are visiting the lake access point. We're going to take you to the boat launch so that you can see what the boat launch looks like at the Lakeview Campground. Today, the weather was not very warm and the wind was blowing. So yesterday, if I'd taken you on our tour, you would have seen tons of people out on the lake with boats and just doing all sorts of activities out there. Today, it was absolutely quiet on the lake because it was not a very fun day and the weather was not great for enjoying lake weather. But this gives you a good idea of what the boat launch looks like, what kind of space you have to load and unload your boat if you decide to take your boat with you while you go camping. Time to press fast forward again and take us back to the public parking lot and also to take a good look at the playground that is accessible for everybody to use and the open field that's also there for guests that are visiting the lake during the day. Driving back up the road of the B loop, and we're going to check out a few of the sites on the right-hand side of the road now. So this loop starts with site 213, wraps around and goes all the way to 228. The next loop you're going to see starts at 179, loops around and comes back to the next 194. Set of campsites you're going to see is from 154 to 162. Here. Now we have our public bathroom, and these next sites go from 144 to 117, and these are the sites that are also water, power, and sewer offered. And there is your whole view of Loop B. Let's speed up the camera again, and I'm going to take you down to Loop C. This loop is 229 to 232, so only 4 campsites. What's important to note in Loop C is that every site is unserviced, so you will need to have your trailer full of water and bring a generator if you'd like to have power source of some sort while you're camping here. But this was a very quiet loop. There wasn't any people, and the only time we drove through this one was to give you a full view of the loop itself. We're going to speed up a little bit here, and one thing also to note in Loop C, because they're unserviced, these sites are the ones that fill up last. It also has way more tenters in it because it is unserviced, and that is just something that people with tents don't seem to mind, of course. And as you look back here, this was a Sunday and the sites already on this Loop C were quite empty. Ours, on the other hand, had a little more. This is starting in number 246 and wrapping around to the last campsite, which was 256. Another question I get asked frequently about this campground, and lots of provincial parks for that matter, is whether the campground allows pets, specifically dogs. They allow pets on a leash in the campground, but no pets on the beach with or without a leash. Also, the rest of the campground is pet friendly, but they do need to be in good behavior and on a leash at all times. There's a total of 27 campsites that are unserviced at the Lakeview Campground. The cost is $35 per night. For every campsite, reservations can be made 90 days in advance of the arrival date. And this is one thing we tend to forget to do for our September long weekend camping is not book early enough. So my goal for next year is to book this same campground early enough so that we can enjoy the power, water, sewage sites and not have to be an unserviced site. Here's your last campsite of the entire campground, number 256. We're going to speed up the camera, loop around the bottom of Loop C and come up. And so on our right-hand side, you're going to be able to see the 3 group campsites that you can book at Lakeview Campground. Now, the only price that I could find for group camping was you could have at group site A. The cost on the albertaparks.ca said that it's $235 a night for 5 units, and each additional unit is $35. And so we're just going to do a quick drive through these sites so you can see them. I don't have much other information on the group campsites. They do have fire pits and they do have toilets as well. And it looked like each spot also had some sort of enclosed cabin that the group campsites could use. There is one set of public showers. It is located at, well, in between both A and B, but closer to the B sites. The wonderful thing about it is that these showers are free, but there's only a few of them. So let's go inside. We're going to check the women's side, of course, and I'll show you what the public washroom and showers look like. Excuse the videography here. It was a little bit tougher to zoom out when I needed to, but as you can see, just a simple shower head, but it works when you need a shower. Down this path behind the public showers, there is a bike path that if you start on this, it will take you all the way up to Bentley. Now, Bentley has our favorite bike shop located there. And so there's also further down the street in Bentley, there's also an ice cream shop. So we like to make this trip as part of our weekend adventure and also enjoy riding around the many trails that Lakeview Campground has to offer. I'm going to just show you a few glimpses of the bike trails to get an idea. You can ride your bikes down to the beachfront. There's a playground. There's your view of the beach. Look how low the water was. Here's your public washrooms at the beachfront, and there's a trail that rides right through the trees. Everyone was out for a Sunday walk because the weather wasn't great to be in the lake, so what better thing to do than enjoy the campground this way. And there's this huge bridge that connects both Lakeview and Brewers campground together over a low marshland. It's a great place to come for a walk or bike ride and take a stop and look at the birds in the area and just enjoy the gorgeous view that this path gives to both areas of Gull Lake. And that comes to the end of our campground tour for Lakewood Campground at Aspen Beach, Gull Lake. If you enjoyed this video, I hope that you would click like and subscribe. I'm on a mission this year for 2023 to get to 10,000 subscribers. For some, that may not seem like a big deal, but for me, that is huge. And I would appreciate the like and subscribing. You help me know the content that you're enjoying. And I have to admit that these campground tours are awesome because we as a family love to go camping. And I love to share the campgrounds that we enjoy so that you can find those hidden gems too. Because how do you know what a campground looks like? By just checking it out on the map. You have to drive through an experience, and there's pictures, but does that really tell you the real story of what a campground looks and feels like? I learned something new today as we toured the campground here, that they have sewage sites. I knew they had power and water for some sites, but they actually have sewage, which takes it to the next level. And I have to admit, some of those little luxuries make camping seem not quite so like camping. I hope you have a great week and enjoy the season as it turns into fall. We'll see you next week.